Here on Roll for Crit, we are used to talking about the contents of tabletop games, what we like about how they play, but on this episode, we are strictly speaking about the outside of the box, specifically the box art and our top 10 favorite board game box arts of all time. We are judging the books by their covers completely. Doesn't matter how good or bad the game is. We're talking about the art just on that front cover, not even on the cards inside of it, just the front box art.
That'll be a different list.
Yes, that will be a whole other list. I mean, it probably will be. And so this is one of the more, I would say, even more than any other subjective lists, because there's so many different box arts and there's so many possible, it's so much about what you like about something. I mean, we can talk as we get into it about our personal reasons for choosing what we choose.
Not only that, I feel even worse because this is so much easier to be like, oh, why didn't you just do that game? Well, now that I've seen it, it's a contender for the list. Like, we don't have to play it, so it's even worse if we miss something.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, we're going to miss a lot of things with only 10, because at least for me personally, I just think there's so many great box arts. I found it very hard.
And it's like,
we always find it hard to narrow down these lists, but this one was tough.
Sometimes it also comes down to what you expect for that kind of game too, but we'll get more into that, I guess, when we get through our picks. So I'm starting it off, right? So here we go.
Let's do it.
My number 10, honestly, is a little bit of a cheat because it's almost a full set of games, but I will name one that I like, and that's the OINK game line. These are games from Japan. They're usually smaller, and I feel each of their covers are usually using, there are some a bit more complicated ones, but usually two colors in this really cool ways. The one I'm going to pick out, though, is Deep Sea Adventure. It's just got a sub and a water. There isn't much going on, but I love it because it matches the idea of this small, simplistic game that's you're on a sub and you're just gathering stuff. They're very vivid and pop out for being so simple. And I just feel like it matches what I expect from the game.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Those are very cute. I love the bright colors and very simple designs as well. I definitely am into those too.
They also do something I feel is, at least to me, I don't know, I'm sure if I think of them on my list, but in general, I think is something very good for a game line to do, to be able to point out, like, I know that's from that series. It's not like, is that a Fantasy Flight game or is that this? Like, it belongs to that. Something that, like, where you can point out, it's like if it's a Pixar movie or something, for example. I think to me that shows that you really stick to your guns of whatever your brand is.
I will begin my countdown with my number 10, and my number 10 pick is not a cheat. It's a legitimate pick. It's Codenames, the word guessing game. I think this is more than just an aesthetically pleasing box art. It feels very iconic to me. I think one thing I found that will probably carry over into a lot of my picks is similar to the OINK games. I find appealing when box arts are relatively simple and just have like a couple of elements that really pop out. And Codenames really has that. It's this very evocative, these silhouetted people on a bright background. It's like, oh, what's going on there? I'm interested to find out what's going on in that game. And immediately, when you see, like you said about OINK, kind of, when you see that silhouette, you see it on maybe a different version of Codenames, like pictures or whatnot, it's Codenames, it sticks in your head. And that, I guess that's part of my picks for this list too, is which of these boxes are either more iconic or memorable, or just make you, when you see it, want to know what's going on in that box. So that's my number 10 is Codenames. Specifically the original, I suppose. But like I said, there's elements that carry on to the other ones. And my number 9, kind of a different thing. My number 9 is Wavelength. This is another party word guessing game. So sticking close with that genre, I suppose. But this one's a very abstract look of two faces facing each other. And I like the way that it incorporates, in a way, the theme of the game, which is about trying to read each other, your fellow players, and trying to figure out what they're thinking about beyond their wavelength, so to speak. But it does that in a very weird, abstract way that looks like it could just be kind of a piece of modern art somewhere. And it's very, very different. I think it really stands out from a lot of other box arts on a shelf. The bright, vivid colors and just the overall style of it makes it jump out at me more than others do.
I completely see where that's coming from, and I wish I had more time to actually play it too. But my next one, I definitely could see it not being as high on a lot of people's list. And I'll say it now, it is my only real Lovecraft game on my list.
Okay.
The problem is, for a lot of these, I feel if I just showed you box art, and I think, Jonathan, you'd agree, you would not be able to place the game. You'd be like, that's maybe the Arkham line? This one, however, I think does a good job tying in with the title and really gets what's going on, and that is A Study in Emerald, the first edition. A Study in Emerald is sort of a Lovecraftian twist on the Sherlock Holmes stories, and in this one, they actually remake the original A Study in Scarlet from Lovecraft, but instead, there's an eldritch being that did the writing on the wall. Because of that, this is one that where most of the times I don't think when you have your cast of characters on there, it sort of actually sets the scene of what the theme of the board game is, which is why I really like this one. And I particularly chose this edition because the second edition just shows a little figure which probably can be assumed to be Sherlock with Cthulhu bursting out of London. I'm like, to me, that doesn't really scream as much as really tying in like, this is Sherlock. Like, this is not it's not a direct reference to one of the most famous Sherlock stories. Moving on to my number 8, and that's Oceans. Oceans is definitely one of those that is going to be very high when we do game components, and they use that art on the cover. It's really beautiful and vivid. You see this coral reef and this whale going on. And honestly, I know this is a little unfair, but I put it lower because I think they did such a terrible job on the sides of the box. It doesn't actually say just Oceans. And I know that's not a fair thing to judge it on, but to me, it was enough of a thing that it bothers the hell out of me on my shelf.
What is it? So it bothers you because it doesn't.
It
say
doesn't
the title
just say
of the
Oceans.
game?
It says like this is a game for 12 to 6. Like it's like more like the back of the box description on the sides and stuff. I can't fit it nicely on this shelf.
Well, all right. You docked a few points, I suppose, for that reason. But that cover, we can agree, is a very beautiful kind of a cover. My number 8, in fact, is a game that we also both really love. It's Rising Sun that Come On published. This is a game all about battling Japanese clans with mythology elements in there. And the box art pretty well represents that. It's very reminiscent of kind of those classical, traditional Japanese scroll arts that you see here and there. And again, a very simple background with like this gorgeous stuff going on in the background, but it's almost faded. Like it's not really in the forefront. At the foreground is this guy who's like one of these clan leaders looking awesome in this awesome outfit. And this stripe right down the side of Rising Sun, bold, catches the eye, really good looking title. It's kind of perfect. This was a really,
I cannot argue with that one. That one was a close contender. And I completely see all those elements and why that would be such a one to make your list. And yeah, almost make mine.
I could see that like even being higher for mine. You know, it's a good
Look,
one.
Even more so, you'd be like, what art speaks to you right now? You know,
right. My number 7 pick then next is probably the busiest one that I've got so far, and for this one I went with the Van Ryder Games game Detective City of Angels. Yeah. Now this one shows kind of this this is a noir mystery detective game, and you've got this sort of Hollywood 1940s 1950s crime scene in progress. A lot of different elements, but the art is gorgeous. It is reminiscent of the kind of pulp fiction, like old paperback detective novel covers type of look. And I think I'm actually surprised this is the maybe not the only, but one of a couple of games on my list that isn't the square format. There were some, at least runners up, that I feel like made a stronger case in my mind just because more room to work with. That rectangular box art can be really visually striking.
Weirdly enough, because I'm going to bring it, it relates, I think, a lot. The Study in Emerald is a longer box, but in height. And I think both of them do the same thing, it sounds like. And it's not just the cast of characters on there, which a lot of box arts do. It's actually what's going on in the game. It's that crime scene, and I feel like it does the job of setting the tone. That, for at least for us, I think that makes it the busyness much more. You can appreciate it a bit more.
Yeah.
So moving on to my number 7, we've got a much simpler one, and I think would pair well with code names, and that's Fog of Love. It is very simple. It's a white box with 2 people on there, 1 in pink, 1 in blue for the players. Now, in particular, I feel that the newer covers that have either 2 guys or girls on them look a little better, mostly just because the original cover, they look a bit more competitive back to back. And yes, you can play this game competitive. But I sort of like the newer ones because it almost feels like, because I almost like to play this game a bit more like we're working together. We're trying to make this work out.
This one is also on my very close to making my list. In fact, I almost, like you compared it to Codenames, I almost wanted to cheat and just be with my Codenames, be like, also kind of the same thing as Fog of Love.
I covered it for you. Don't worry. You see, this is what I'm talking about. Working together. We're helping each other out.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that on there. It is, for the reasons you said, it's very beautiful. Nice cover.
And my next one, number 6, is sort of similar in a way. It's another big, bright white box with something cluttered in the center, but I think it works here, and that's Tokaido. Now, this box, I said, white box with almost all the weird things you can do in there clustered in the center, but I like it because it's just like, this is your journey. You're going to go on all these clear things, but it keeps the clean vibe on the outside, just how the game itself is really just sort of a move along, have your journey. It's not this war where you have all these people going on and you're fighting each other, which is why I really do appreciate this box art.
That's a really good one. That's one I didn't think of either. Another very mostly white box I actually considered was the original Time Stories cover. It doesn't make my top 10, but there's something that's really nice about that. It's
the clean. It's like when you have the pure white or black, which may come up again on my list. I think it really helps make it pop a bit more.
Absolutely.
In some ways.
So next we're back to me with my number 6, and this is my other one that I think is more of a rectangular box. It's from Stonemaier Games' Scythe, which is this, I mean, that game has all kinds of gorgeous art, very kind of traditional painterly style to it. And the front cover is just these, people farming and doing their thing in nature. And in the background, there just happen to be some mechs, doing their thing. And that's very much a kind of what the game feels like. It's this very interesting juxtaposition between, technology and kind of these more classical elements. And I love the way it looks on that front cover. Like I said, this is another one of those boxes that I look at and go, I want to know what is going on. And like, if this was in a museum or if this was the poster for a movie or something, I just would look at this and go, yeah, why are these robots there? Where does this take place? When does this take place? How did this happen? It gets my mind thinking. And that's what I appreciate. Even
more so because they keep that, that artwork for those event cards. And you're just like, what can you do? Trade, sell, or trick them into the cows are secretly spies. You're like, wait, what? So they somehow still keep that confusion of what's going on in there in the game. So I can totally see that coming through with the Scythe art. There's a cool
lore, a very cool world being built there. And
honestly,
I
I'm surprised. That definitely is one I think some movie studio could pick up because I don't think it'd be hard either. You could do something pretty interesting. You're not constrained too much.
Probably. And I think the same could be said with my next choice. Into the top 5 now. My number 5 is Mysterium, the cooperative game of trying to figure out who committed a murder and how as a ghost is helping you. Of course, there's gorgeous art throughout this game. All the cards in this one have this really beautiful kind of dark, Tim Burton-y, Edward Gorey kind of vibe to them, but with these rich, lush colors. And the box art is this haunting blues of this like, I think it's just a carriage of some kind of a car headed off into the distance to this mysterious manor. Super spooky, super cool, a little bit creepy, but not in an off-putting way, in like an inviting way. Like a classical ghost story is what it feels
not like a scary movie like jump scare thing, more like just setting the tone. Like you can picture that scene in the movie.
Almost like kind of like the Exorcist poster is sort of similar, just like, the outdoors and the fog and like this city landscape a little bit. I also really like the original, the Polish edition of Mysterium that Mysterium was based off of. Very different kind of a vibe, but I like that one too. But I like the American one better.
My number 5, I think, is very beautiful. It's going to get some bonus points when I'll explain it later, and that's Kanagawa. This is this beautiful Japanese art of a deer on the hill, and I like that the brush is there almost to show that the painter just finished. And I just think it has those beautiful colors that we see in a lot of the paintings. They're similar to what you were bringing up a little bit with Rising Sun. And the bonus points gonna go for its expansion can be put next to it to make it like a nice bigger picture. So it almost continues the painting onwards. And that bonus point thing I mentioned turns out it's gonna work for the next game on my list too. Because at number 4, we've got Canvas. This game is all about making pieces of art and layering them, similar to Mystic Veil. And it sort of shows that here. If you actually look, it has 3 main elements. So it actually sets the scene for what the game is about as well. And I like it over the other one because if you look at the box art, it's just the name, Canvas. There isn't like awards or 5 to 6 players. And I really like it when they, yes, I understand you want the cover to sell. So you got to tell like it fits as many people or whatnot. But it's sort of nice just to be like, here's your art.
Yes, we like the clean. You always like the original movie poster versus the DVD that comes out and it's just got like all the names of the actors plastered all over the place. You like it to be pure and clean. I absolutely, I'm with you on that. And that one you can literally hang on your wall, and in fact you have.
It is. It's I guess depending on how we cut this, you might not see it, but it's right over there. Maybe we'll like pan to it or something. And that I love that even just for other games. Like, doesn't need to be so many games. Would be like, I wish there was a way you could hook them all on your wall, and that's our shelving system. Be like, what game to play? Just take it off the wall.
Yeah. So that takes it back to me again, right? For my number 4, and my number 4 is definitely of all the games on my list, not one that I really like that much. All the other ones are games that I think are actually really good. And happen to have good box arts. This one, it's like, it did some interesting things, but it's not that great. And
great way to sell the game before.
Yeah, just want you to know what you're getting into. That game is Discover Lands Unknown, published by Fantasy Flight. And this was their entry in what was a new type of game they called the unique game system. And the idea was that every box that you played would be slightly different and you didn't know which one you were going to get. So you were going to have slightly different environments to explore, different events that would take place with the same general rules. But aside from the game, how it turned out itself, I love the way the cover illustrates that concept. It has these 4 backgrounds of different environments. So it's showing you all the possibilities, and each one has this cool, like a stripe of a different color that looks really nice in the backdrop against this explorer, so to speak, who's in the foreground, going off on this adventure. I just love the way it looks, and even though I don't think the concept was executed that well or as well as it could have been, seeing the box, I want that concept to succeed. It makes me excited. It looks very adventurous and fun to get into that world. So that is my number 4 pick. My number 3 is the first one, I think, so far that we have in common, and that's Oceans. Unlike you, this game is not on my shelf, so the side of the box wasn't even a consideration. I think that I
was probably a bit too mean to it, I admit. I'm glad you put it higher, so now I don't have to feel as bad about being mean about it.
Yeah, I think it's such a gorgeous, beautiful cover, and this is another one that also has a lot of beautiful cards in a similar style, but more so to me, that box art is the best out of all of them. It's this beautiful, almost kind of like a watercolor, which I guess is appropriate because it's water, that I think is just really, really very beautiful. I love the colors. It's very soothing to look at. It's just a nice, a nice place to be, is in that the world of that image.
So my number 3 is, I would say, doing the opposite. It's not soothing. In fact, it is maybe a bit terrifying. And that is Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. This is a pitch black box. You got a white title. You see an astronaut etched out in light blue with a dark, strange creature in the dark gray that just pops out about the black, but not enough. It's like you got to change the brightness a bit sometimes to see it. And to me, that really captures the minimalist, but also at the same time, the game of the terrifying of you being in the dark and something haunting you, assuming that you're not playing with someone who just goes, I'm the alien first turn and try to attack.
That is an awesome pick. And yeah, that does something really cool. It's like you said, that I'm sure there's a word for it where it's It's not like lenticular, is it? It's
You should know. You're the art history major. You should have at least some of this vocabulary.
We don't need to mention that in this episode. That's not relevant to this discussion. Yeah, like when you angle it in the light and you just kind of see, oh, there's something going on there. Which is also just like what the theme of the game is. You don't know what's going on, and like you catch a glimpse of it, and you're trying to figure out where everybody's at. Very cool. That's a great pick.
Now, my number 2, also black box, though the expansion has a white box matching with earlier with Fog of Love and stuff. And in terms of minimalism, I think it does a great job, and that's the Seventh Continent. All the box is this skull image. And to me, that just gets this idea of like an ancient tome. It feels like what you'd actually want from Jumanji. You know, this old style game. You don't see black. It's just this weird symbol that either is a person, a tome, or like I said, a skull. And I think that captures the excitement of me being like, I probably shouldn't open this, but I want to know and dive in. And of course you get cursed. So now you got to explore the island.
Yeah, that is another one that was like definitely is a runner up for me. I had that on the short list. I was really thinking about it. It's great. Like you said, definitely, you can see, I think we're drawn to that stark background of one color or just a couple colors with a really interesting, iconic image in front of it. There's something very powerful about that. And now we're on to the final entries on my list. My number 2 is very appropriate. I mean, this game should have great box art, and that's modern art. The Rainer Knizia bidding game where you are actually bidding on different pieces of modern art. Now, there are a few different editions of this game with different covers. You'll see the one that I'm referring to. And I almost cut this out. I wasn't sure if it was a cheat because the game uses real artists, obviously. Every artist who draws art is real, but meaning artists that existed outside
art, yeah,
the world of board games. But I'm pretty sure at least this cover and most of the art in it was commissioned specifically for the game. So it is original for the game as far as I know. And it's this guy with his head exploding. And it's just this great piece of art. It's by this Brazilian artist. And I think he has other artwork in the game as cards, including this one, I believe. And it's so awesome looking. And for, again, a game that's about art, you look at that and you go, yeah, that's maybe one of the best examples when I think of when I see modern art. I'm like, oh yeah, that looks awesome. It's kind of surreal. It's weird. It's striking. It's got action going on. I really love it. I think it's really sets the stage well for what's inside that game.
It's also a great pick because I'm picturing a lot of the collecting art piece games. And I feel that one just stands out from them too, because I feel like a lot of them are, group of people, or doesn't feel nearly as like it really makes it pop, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It absolutely pops in more ways than one, that box art. And then my number one pick, I guess my personal favorite, so to speak, box art, board game box art of all time, could change tomorrow, we'll see, or in an hour, is Wingspan. Wingspan is my number one. It's a very striking cover. Beth Sobel has, I think with this game became a household name, like instantly. Went on to do stuff like the Calico box art, which is also pretty great. I didn't include that one. I took points off because it's not a Calico cat, and I just can't deal with that. But not only is it a beautifully depicted bird, so beautiful. In fact, they even have now a book about birds that is using the art from this game to depict them. It's a joy to look through all the different birds. It does the thing again of a single striking figure on a single color background. And I just feel like it immediately became so iconic that people who are now casual gamers or hardcore gamers, everyone knows that image. And as soon as you've seen that box art, there's something about it that just burns into your brain. It's just really beautifully drawn. It's realistic, but it doesn't feel like it's so realistic that it's boring. The colors are beautiful. It's Wingspan. I think that it's hard to argue, especially again for how relatively recent that game is, where I just feel like everybody knows it. I think it's iconic, and that's why I picked it for my number one.
Yeah, spoilers, it is not my number one, and I looked at it, and I don't know, I can't tell you why it didn't make my list, but
It's funny because I think you like Wingspan the game a little more than I do, and I like Wingspan the box art more than you do.
I love the card art. I think it's amazing, and I agree with it being put into a book. I just don't know why it didn't make the cut for me. It's so.
Who knows?
And I'm annoyed that I can't give an answer, but I guess that's the thing with very subjective things sometimes.
Yeah, you're not an art history major like me. You can't put it into words.
Oh, all right. So my number one, probably not that big of a surprise if you follow us on Instagram, and that's Abyss. The box covers for these are all beautiful. The title's not on there. It's just this face glaring at you. Personally, my favorite is the Seahorse one. It's the one I own, but it's so beautiful and just captures just the different factions just staring and ready to take you on in order to gain power. I just love it. It's the one I would love to buy a print of without any additions. It doesn't need it because unlike I said with the other, and Seventh Continent had this too, not even a title. It's just the art.
I will say I completely agree and think it's totally valid. Pick Abyss as number one. I mean, it is so striking, and like you said, I love that there's not even a title. It's just those faces. The reason I ultimately decided not to put it on my list was because while I think the art style is incredible, I also am just the actual creatures being depicted are like these scowling, ugly, mean sea creatures.
Well, yeah, no, that's why I feel like the Seahorse one is much prettier.
Yeah. So for me, it ultimately came down to just like, even though they're beautiful, I don't really want to like look at them.
I gotcha.
that much.
I was really
It's a very
happy.
personal preference. I'm surprised you haven't collected the whole set.
I think I'm fine with one copy of the game.
As we said, there are so many great board game box arts. We couldn't fit them all on our list. We asked our patrons on our Patreon page, patreon.com/rollforcrit, to give us their picks, and we're going to highlight some of those as well to fill out our episode. So Scott Armstrong mentioned Scythe, which I also picked, and Dice Throne Adventures, or said two are his favorites at the moment. I guess that could change. Brandizzle said On Mars, which was another one I looked at that has a really nice cover, as well as the new version of High Society bidding game. I haven't seen a new edition cover of High Society, but I remember the old one. It's just a tiny little box. Falcon Ash K likes Quarriors, which there's a lot going on the cover of Quarriors. Also mentioned Smash Up, the big geeky box. Also a lot going on. I kind of looked at Smash Up. There's a lot of. It was a little too busy for me, but
it
there's
is
a lot
busy.
of stuff.
I like it. It does, as we were saying before, set the scene because it's supposed to be busy.
Right.
The game.
That is true. John Dassa on Patreon mentioned Shadows of Brimstone and Unmatched. Unmatched is one where I love the art on the cards. I don't think the covers are that great in terms of their like composition.
I think the 2-player ones are better.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because they're actually head to head with each other.
Some more patrons picks. Hoser40K said Photosynthesis, which is one I considered. Mm-hmm. That's definitely a nice one. Christopher Deonda said In the Hall of the Mountain King, as well as Black Angel, another one, a game I've never played, but I did consider it because I do think it has a great cover. And then Fernando Martinez says he likes the art on the Networks, particularly the Executives expansion box, which is a game about running a TV network. There's all kinds of screens and people running around. So those are our patrons' picks. Everybody had a lot of fun thoughts. But how about, we mentioned some during the lists, but what are just a few that you have that didn't quite make it that we didn't mention yet?
So one of them is Parks. I think that's another game when the art looks really nice. And it actually, I think, fits where you'd expect that game. But I don't know. The style isn't as much I'm in love with compared to the rest of my list. Mm-hmm. Two other ones. One is the Sherlock series, the detective series, because I don't think the covers are that amazing, but I like them together. Like it's one of those things where the set feels nice.
Okay, yeah.
And finally, this one is relatively new, is Almanac the Dragon Road. The cover itself it's pretty cool, but I like it more that overall, not just the cover, it's like it looks like a book because you play the game through pages. So yeah, it was like not enough. And I know, once again, I'm thinking about the sides, and I did care about that with Oceans, but it is a cool box.
Yeah, I can see that. That's like the Facade Games line of deduction games that look like books. They don't have good covers, but they look really nice together.
Right, like the overall box.
Yeah,
it
the
definitely,
overall aesthetic.
It would fit well with those. You gotta get. We need to make a collection of boxes that just look like books. So we have a fake bookshelf.
It's great. It's great. The Role Player Big Box, I think, does that as well. A few others I'll mention besides the ones we talked about already during the list. Cyclades. It is very busy, and I think this one was partially on my list just because I love the space they have to work with. Another one in the corner for rectangular boxes. I thought was pretty cool. Pendulum was really close. I actually love the art for Pendulum, and I think it's the same artist, or if not a similar style, for the box art of Tapestry. I think both are really good looking, strong contenders. I also said Dune. I think both the new one and the original version have really nice covers with this big sandworm attacking people on the front.
I don't know the original one.
It's much more, it's similar concept, but it looks much more like 70s book cover kind of image. And another big one that honestly I thought about is Catan. It's just that
actually that
sunrise.
Was what I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's a really nice image.
It is very nice, and it works very well on the shirt we made that is based on it. You should check out our merch store. Plug. There is one other one I sort of almost picked. It is one I like a lot, but I just don't feel like it's done exactly well, and that's Cthulhu Wars. I like where how they do the god art, and it has the pitch black thing that we said before, but to me, it doesn't feel nearly as like it's more of like we said with Unmatched. It's showing the cast. It's not.
It's not as creative, perhaps, in its
in
its out in the way it's arranged. Yeah, I can see that. So I'm really glad that of all our games, we only shared one in common, right? Just Oceans. So that's pretty fun. So a lot of interesting box arts, and like I said, this is very subjective. So I'm sure the people watching at home have their own takes. And guess what? This is your chance to give us those takes in the comments down below. You can tell us which of our box arts you actually think are really awful, or which ones we didn't mention that you believe are worthy of being in a top 10 box cover list. There's a lot of great ones out there. Even ones I didn't mention as runners up. I had a huge list that I had to narrow down. Everything I looked at, I was like, that's good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. But you can talk to us in those comments down below.
Look, we'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure we will talk more about them at a later date, maybe even on the podcast. I don't know, because this is one I can see a lot of people having input on, since there are so many different covers, like you said, Jonathan.
Yeah. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the vid. Stay tuned for more stuff. Otherwise, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this has been Roll for Crit. If you liked this video, then like the video and subscribe to our channel. That would be awesome of you. We've also got a Patreon page, so we thank our Patreon supporters who also get access to some cool bonus content. If you want to see more of us, we are streaming live on Twitch and a separate YouTube channel every single week. Check that all out at rollforcrit.com/live.